Hey besties, welcome to Let's Talk SGBV, where we discuss everything related to sexual gender-based violence in our community. I am your host, Hassan Omaina. Today, we will be discussing Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And who better to discuss this with than my friend, Priye. Hi, Priye.
Hi, Hassan.
Priye is a human rights defender, sexual gender-based violence first responder, and she is a filmmaker. Thank you so much for being here. So I think we're just going to dive right into the conversation. This is April, and this is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I want to start by asking, or rather by just getting your insight, as to why we have a whole month, for sexual assault awareness.
Okay. So I think that, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. Sexual Assault Awareness Month, Sam, it's a very important month to me because I think that it's important for us to lead advocacy every single day of the year, so 365 days a year, because sexual assault happens every day. Many women and girls go through sexual and gender-based violence, sexual assault, sexual harassment, and we don't talk about it enough. And so I think that having this month is very important and significant because it helps to talk about the issues that women and girls go through in the home, in public spaces, in schools, in churches, in the mosques, just to raise advocacy around sexual assault and sexual harassment.
Oh, wow, brilliant. And I think I particularly like when you say this is something that we must talk about every day. Unfortunately, this is not so because we live in a culture or a community that encourages silence, especially when it comes to, issues of sexual assault. Why do you think that is so? Why do we encourage people to keep quiet? Why do we encourage people to not speak out? And why is it that most times we push the shame of sexual assault to the victim, or the survivor rather, instead of the perpetrator? Like, this is someone that has survived such heinous crime, and then the shame is shifted to her instead of the perpetrator. Why do you think that is so?
I think for me, it's cultural. It's culture, it's socialization, it's the way that we look at women when we think that women are lesser than men. So if a woman belongs in the kitchen, when men are speaking, you do not speak. You are just to be seen and not to be heard. And I think that it's all of these things that has come together to make women, to silence women from speaking out. Because first and foremost, in the family, for instance, for a father rapes his daughter, the mother says, "Oh, I do not want to be shamed in the community. And so we must keep this between us. It's a family matter." And it just transcends the family because I always say that we find family in every section of society. Yeah, we see families. Family is one of the most, what's what I'm looking for? We find family in every section of society. So for instance, I go to the police station to report a case as a first responder, and I'm saying, "Oh, this man has beat his wife." And the police tells me it's a family.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's culture again, the way we see family as something so sacred. Of course it is sacred, but not when women and girls are getting hurt every day, not when the lives of women and girls are at risk every single day. Then we have to do something about it. We must speak about it. And I think that when we bring it now to Nigeria, at present day Nigeria, it's the forceful culture for me, because I think that culture should change over time. When my great-grandfather was there, we never had social media. Yeah, so my grandmother could not come and say, "Oh, this thing happened to me." But now that we're in this age, I think that we need to evolve with our culture as we evolve as human beings. And so I'm very particular about the sermons. I'm going to say one of the key things I love about the sermons is the denim day. The denim day is supposed to be, I think, the last Thursday every sermon. And it just basically speaks about, I think in some country years ago, a girl was raped while she was wearing a jean trouser. And she went to court, and the judge had said, because she was wearing a jean trouser, it wasn't rape. She must have helped take it off for the man to penetrate. And so a lot of people took it to the streets and they wore their names to say, "Oh, my clothes are not the problem. Do you get? I did not assist this man in raping me." I mean, the man was scot-free. So I think that we need to also come to the conversation of what is a woman wearing? We've had that conversation over time. "Oh, you were raped." Because as a matter of fact, yesterday in my office, we had a program. And this woman came to the program. I told my boss, Dorothy, that she was indecently dressed. And it's because of these things, like that's how people rape you people. And you people come outside to say, oh, I've just been raped. But how do we then change it? How do we tell our mothers, our great-grandmothers, our grandmothers that society is changing? It's a tough conversation to have, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And so culture has seeped really deep in those generations. But what we have to do now is we have to learn and relearn and unlearn as we go ahead.
And I love what you talk about learning and relearning and unlearning. But there's so many harmful practices that, we carry. And unfortunately, we also see that some women carry this and you're like, but this is hurting you and it's hurting you. Why then do you continue to, enforce the patriarchy by enforcing and restating these harmful conversations, especially on the issue of what are you wearing? If you dress like this, that's the reason why you get raped. But then we see people that wear full dresses and they are being raped in the holiest of the holiest places, and they are being attacked. Women are being attacked everywhere and women are being assaulted everywhere. Where do you then go with that? During COVID, I remember the girl that was raped in a church. So where then do we go with this? But you were also, when you were having this conversation, you kept on talking about family and family and family. And I kept on thinking of Proverbs, and I want to share one. And if you can think of any, perhaps you would also share one. We talk about how women are the home. We say, oh, a woman is this, a woman should keep her home. But we only say that when maybe a woman is trying to run away from abuse, a woman is trying to, stand on her own feet. That's when you hear people say, like in Hausa, machiche itache take gida. That means the woman is the one that holds the home. And I always find it so interesting that they never say that when it's in terms of finances, like, oh, okay, I'm bringing the home, my money for you to help us hold the home, But like once it's like in terms of you being abused or the man abusing your niece or your daughter or something, then you'd hear people repeat this over and over again to further encourage you to be silent about the abuse so that you can hold your home. I don't know if you have something similar in
I love that, by the way. I would think about it because I'm thinking, the only thing I can think about is, I'm a Christian, of course.
Yeah.
The thing I can think about is the Bible, when you have the conversation of, oh, submit to your husband. Oh my God. When we have that conversation, every single time I hear pastors and the rest of them say, submit. Women, you must submit to your husbands.
So like, I know that the verse that goes immediately after is love.
So this is why I'm like, because a lot of times when we talk about this very passage of the Bible or whatever it is, we do not talk about the one that precedes. We don't say, oh, you must love your wife as the church loves is whatever. I don't remember very well, but you must love your. We don't talk about that, and we don't talk about that because when we talk about love is all encompassing. When you love someone, you do not abuse them. You do not hurt them. You do not beat them. When you love someone, you protect them. When you love someone, they feel safe where you are. But a lot of relationships that we have today, a lot of marriages, a lot of times when pastors come up on the pulpit and say, oh, submit, they forget the other parts and they don't talk about it. And I think that this whole idea of, oh, the man is the head of the family, the woman is the neck, woman, like we need to die it. Like it needs to be dead. Like we need to off the road with that because it doesn't make any sense.
And it's also interesting because now that you're saying this, what keeps on coming to my mind is when feminists say the personal is political, because most of the time, I feel like that's what is used to like eradicate women from so many public spaces. So they say you can't bring your child to your workplace, for instance. But every woman knows that her child is an extension of her. So they say, oh, keep your family problems out of the window before you come into the workplace. I find that very sexist, and I think it just still goes back in terms to what you say also about, family unit, how are women expected to carry themselves in a family? How are men expected to treat women in a family? And I think when we are able to fix that unit, then we would ultimately be able to fix the society. Because sometimes when people bring up these topics and they're having these conversations, people now say, oh, you're bringing your family issues out. But unless and until we're able to fix families, I feel like we would continue to be in this mess that, we have found ourselves in. But I want us to go back to the issue of sexual awareness. as a first responder, I know you've done so much work, in responding to people, to women in distress positions. The last time I was at the center, you all had me bawling my eyes out with tears. I wanted to ask, what have you seen, with regards awareness? How helpful has it been to further embolden women to come out and say, this is an abuser? Because sometimes we have found, even prior to Me Too and prior to women even being able to be heard and people saying, I believe you, women are not even able to mention these things, But I'm just wondering, because you're in the field, you know what's happening. So all of the awareness that people are doing on social media, the campaigns we're seeing, how has that, have you seen a shift, in the way survivors respond?
So yeah, I would say that I have seen a shift.
Yeah.
I've seen women speak up. I've seen women now want to report, but we do not have the systems to support them when they do. I've seen women say, and I'm saying this because sometimes we get the most ridiculous things that women do. And I get that. It takes a woman over 7 times before she leaves an abusive relationship. So I know that. But we've had women just say, I've come to report my husband. He beat me yesterday, but I don't want you to arrest him. All I want you to do is just scare him a little bit. And I'm looking at her like, what am I supposed to do to scare him? Like, yesterday I had a call with one of our clients' daughter. And we've been trying to get this client to go to a law enforcement agency. And she's like, I have work. I'm very busy. My kids. And the daughter called me yesterday and said, my mom is avoiding going to law enforcement. What can we do? How can I make sure that she goes there? And I'm like, your mother has to come to terms on her own that she wants to go there.
How old is that daughter?
She's 22. Yeah, and the father is abusing the mom. And she's like, I need to take matters into my own hands. What can I do? And really, a lot of times I see myself asking that question, what can I do to help this woman? What can I do to support this girl? But a lot of times when I realize that I have to let them come into it on their own. It's painful to stand by the sideways and just watch, knowing that tomorrow this woman might be beaten again. Yeah. But it's also, I have to let her do it on her own. I cannot force feed her into saying I'm going to leave a relationship, because then I've had situations whereby women say, you're the one that made me leave. Now I'm looking for money for my children to go to school. I'm looking for this. And I'm like, I don't have those resources to support you in that way.
I was listening to a podcast this morning and the person was trying to explain how breakup feels like. So breakup of any type of relationship. And then the way he explained it is that it literally feels like withdrawing from drug addiction. So it's so difficult, that your brain releases some chemical that it's so difficult to come to terms with. So it's not even about, because even in a non-abusive relationship, you get to feel like that. But then in an abusive relationship, because abusers are mostly narcissists, so they always find a way to end up making you super dependent, on the abuse they give you, which they often always masquerade as love. But when you are sharing this story about this particular girl and her mother, it just got me thinking about how so many times women are often expected to parent their mothers. So you get to a point whereby you look at your mother and you look at how helpless she is, and it's like, I don't know if you've read Colin Hoover's book, It Ends With Us. It's like, there's just so much, there's just so much that as a young girl, because I can imagine she's been seeing this since she was a child, that she's expected to take, these are conversations that we have in the kitchen table, so many abuse that happens in family, it's rarely ever discussed in the sitting room. It's discussed in the kitchen table. And who are the people that go to the kitchen table? Women. So it's like something that we all use to now trauma bond. If this children's father beat me, your own just beat you. You're even lucky. This one, he beats me and he stabs me. So, these are like the stories. Then, you're saying, my own better. Let me just, but it's an abuse. And it's not, what's even worse is that you're now letting your daughter to carry this trauma and to think that this is normal. And do you know what's most sad? Is that those that are not fortunate to be in the kitchen table, the men, they come on social media and say, why aren't, I love this question and I'm going to ask it again. And I'm going to try to use my masculine voice. Why aren't women of this generation like our mothers? Why can't we be like our mothers?
Why? Oh my God. Okay, so, and I say this a lot of times. I love my mother to death.
Yeah.
Like, I love my mother, but I would never be like my mom.
Yeah.
And I would never inherit the silence of my mother. And I need men to understand that we're not our mothers.
Mm-hmm.
We're our own selves. Like, I'm never going to see something that is wrong and not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to be in an uncomfortable situation and not want to move out of that space. And I think that a lot of women are coming into that on their own. And I love it. I love it. I love it so much, because even in the office on a normal day, we get like 3 reports of cases. But there was this day I wrote on my status, and I think you asked me, like, Priye, what's going on? Like, we had like 6 cases on that day. And women were just saying, oh, like he spoke to me in this way, and he said he was going to hit me. He hasn't hit me yet, but I'm done with this and I'm not going to continue. And I loved it, because I think that we need to come to the point where we recognize the signs. Mm-hmm. We do not wait until it gets bad, mm-hmm. and we're able to say, I'm not going to do this and I'm going to move on. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about sexual assault, it's really broad. Yeah, it's really broad. So there's the sexual assault, there's sexual harassment, mm-hmm. there's even online gender-based violence. Mm-hmm. And we need to get to the point where we have systems in place to handle these issues when they come up. Mm-hmm. A woman cannot be abused, mm-hmm. and she goes to the police station and you tell her that it's a family matter. Mm-hmm. And when you say that, a lot of these policemen, a lot of these law enforcement officers will say it's a family matter because you beat your wife at home, mm-hmm. and you don't talk about, and she doesn't go anywhere to report. Mm-hmm. That's why you are comfortable telling this other woman that, see, it's a family matter. We've had a case in court for the past 5 years where this man beat his wife almost to death. Like, she was bleeding. He thought she was dead and he ran away. And then we got involved, reported to the police. By the time the police got involved, they've managed to find this man. When they found the man, and this is where the problem began, they found this man and they tried to get him arrested. Arrested him for like 2 days, released him. Then he came back to the house where she was. Mind you, this is the house that she built. He came back to the house where she was. And then he said, this is his house. He is the man of the house. And so in the middle of the night, this woman had to run away from the house, the land she bought, the house she built. She ran away in the middle of the night with her kids because she feared for her life what he would do to her. And then she went back to the police to report the next morning. This man came back to this house, and this police woman, who was her case manager in the police station, said to her, do you want me to chase this man from his house? This case has been in courts for the past how many years? The judge comes out every day. They call the case and the judge says, this woman, do you really want to send your husband to jail? See me in my chambers. And this woman would go to court every single time. No, nothing fruitful comes out of it. And she's just giving up, moved out with her kids and just living her life like the man doesn't exist.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I have to pause and say this is the reason why we're having this podcast, because the conversation is very, very fragmented. You know, now we must have a conversation about law enforcement officers, about even the gender decks of the police. How equipped are these people? How knowledgeable are they to be able to handle sensitive issues like this? We have to talk about the bureaucratic court process that we have in this country. Cases like this should not go on for 5 years. It shouldn't even go on for a month. You know, we have to talk about so many things. We have to talk about community. And there's just so much, you know, so much that has to be discussed. But I'm so curious as to what plunged you into this, Priye. I don't know if you can remember the time that you woke up and you said, I'm just going to do this.
I have to cross my leg for this. So this was 2017. Yeah. I had left home. I was in Lagos and I'm a filmmaker, so I was pursuing filmmaking like with everything in me. I was like, Lagos is the hub, let's get this going.
Yeah. And
I'm telling you, I was in the house of a family friend, and by the way, I just come off like an abuse experience. And so I was already dealing with that trauma. The backdrop of these stories, I was dealing with that trauma. And so I was in Lagos, I was in therapy, I was trying to like figure out myself. how do I move on?
You had that, let's get my life together.
Yeah, let me get my life together. So I cut my hair, dyed it gold. I was like, let me get my life together. And then I was in the house of a family friend. And in the middle of the night one day, I felt someone on me. I would never forget. And I was shaking. I cried. I was begging. This nigga, and I'm going to say that, refused to move. And I think I shared it, one of it is on my Twitter. I think I tweeted about it. And it took another friend to run into the room and push him off me. And I remember that day just crying and crying and crying and crying and crying nonstop. But here's what was different this time. I had just met Dorothy Njemanzi. I was in Abuja to do a film. I met her in Abuja, maybe like 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before that incident. And I remember that she said, oh, this is the work that I do. And so I was crying. I called my therapist. My therapist was speaking to me. And I felt something just nudged me to call this woman. This was like 2 a.m., by the way. And I call her on the phone and she picks up the phone. And she's like, hello? And I couldn't even say anything. I was just crying.
Dorothy, she picks up anything.
Yeah, I was just crying. And I remember Dorothy staying on the phone with me 2 to 6 a.m. And then 7 a.m. in the morning, someone calls my phone and says, hi, my name is, I forget his name. Dorothy sent me to you. Where are you? She's asked me to move you from where you are to somewhere safe. In my head, I'm like, somewhere safe, okay. So I call her and I'm like, she's like, oh, yeah. So we just paid for a hotel for you at least for 2 days to figure out your next move so you're not in that same space. And I was like, okay, what kind of person is this? Like, why would you do something for someone you barely know? Like, you don't know me. You met me. I was doing a film. You were one of the EPs on set and you don't know anything about me. And I remember going to this hotel for 2 days that she paid. I was there. And then I couldn't figure out my next move. So I was going to go home. And I eventually went home. I went back to Port Harcourt. And then in therapy, speaking to Dorothy, speaking to my other friends, saying this is what happened to me. I knew that I needed to do something drastic. I wanted to somehow figure it out. So I was talking to my therapist one day. And then she's like, oh, what do you think is your next step is? And I'm like, maybe I'll move to Abuja. And it was a very casual conversation. I'm going to move to Abuja. And then she's like, to do what? That's not where the film industry is. And I said, no, this woman that helped me, like, maybe there are more people that needs help and maybe I can do something. And so I moved to Abuja and I was volunteering with DNF for 1 year straight when I moved to Abuja. Of course, I was doing film traveling, but that was not the core of the work I was doing. And I realized that this work healed me, to be very honest. It made me who I am today. It's healed me completely. Because when I see women and girls and I'm able to give them a shoulder, it has healed me from my own traumas. It has made me a better person. I now realize that it is important to hold hands. I have understood the bond in sisterhood, yeah. And I've been that person that people will call at 2 a.m. And if I hear my phone ring because I sleep. You said what it does by sleep.
Yeah, I love that for you. I mean,
if I hear my phone ring,
it's a Gen Z in us. It's the Gen Z in us because I'm like, listen, any problem that you have after 10 a.m., speak to God.
If my phone rings, if I hear it ring,
exactly. But it doesn't ring. My phone does not ring.
It's on DNP. I mean, and this also for me, it states that because I'm a service provider, because I know that I provide support for survivors, I know to take a break for myself.
Yeah.
I know that my mental health is very important. I know that there are cases that have triggered me. And there's one of the cases I had in the office. The moment I listened to the girl talk, I was like, I'm coming, 1 second. I just went to the bathroom and I was crying and crying and crying. And I had to tell my colleague, like, maybe you'll pick up, I can't do this. Yeah. And I went home to sleep. And so there are days like that where I'm triggered by some of the cases. But there are better days where I'm able to offer support. And I think that my heart is full, to be very honest, knowing that yesterday we had some picnic for survivors in the office. And my heart was very full, knowing that there are a lot of survivors who I'm like, yeah, I'm the one who helped you and you're here now. Like, yeah.
Well done, Priye.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
I'm not going to forgive myself if I don't talk about your film, because you're so passionate about filmmaking. You know, you love it so much. I know you were in Germany for a while to learn. So I just wanted to ask just one question about it, I promise. We've seen the culture, you know, especially with Nollywood and all. I just wanted to know what you think, because I've seen that it's gotten better. You know, before we've got so much sexism perpetuated by the kind of movies, you know, that is being shot. But now, like, you know, things are different. It seems like we have different producers. We have directors like you that is like, oh no, not on my set, you know. And we love that there's an intentionality to it. What do you think should be done better, you know, with regard, I know it's a loaded question, so just speak, you know, with regards to that. And also, what do you see, what do you hope, you know, for Nollywood? What do you hope for it to do in changing our culture? Because we kept on talking about family culture. What is the role of film in all of it?
I think like film is one of the things that I love with my entire life. I say it all the time. I would say that, for instance, when I'm on a set and I get a script to direct something and I read it, I'm like, no. Yeah. And I've said that to many scripts. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this. And I think that it's because we need to be able to call it as it is.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like in Nollywood, when we see scripts, let's call out sexist content. Yeah. And I say to my friends who are filmmakers, when you get to make something and you have friends sitting in a bar talking, they can have conversations around content. Yeah. It should not be forced, but it can be a very free conversation. Yeah. Because I think that we can have these conversations where we're talking about issues around sexual and gender-based violence, but we're very intentional about how we're doing it. We're making sure that we're teaching younger boys. For instance, I saw a film where a boy was pulling a girl's hair, and the mom was like, oh no, don't do that. She's saying stop. When she says stop, you stop. And I thought that was the most brilliant thing I'd ever seen. It's in the little things. And so filmmakers, please, let's do better. I know that we're doing a lot, but let's do better. When we see scripts, let's fish out sexist scenes. Let's not, I mean, the woman can work. She doesn't always have to be a housewife. I saw something, a housewife, her husband. I'm like, no, we need to change the narrative. We need to do better.
Because women are working everywhere, so
yeah, we need to do better.
Let us see them on TV as well.
Exactly, we need to do better. That's what I would say. But kudos to Nollywood. You guys were doing great, but like, let's do better.
Well done, Priye. Well done so much.
Thank you.
I want us to wrap this. This has been fun, but I want you to mention one person. By person, I mean woman.
Of course.
That, you know, inspires you. That one person that you just feel like has made the world a better place, you know, has made your world a better place. I want to hear it.
You know what was
Speak. I don't know.
So I want to shine the light on Dorothy in Jamanze. Dorothy has single-handedly made my life better, made me more intentional about supporting people. There are some things that I'm like, ugh. And Dorothy's like, no, this person needs this support. And so thank you, Dorothy, for making women and girls in Nigeria feel safe, for creating a safe space for women and girls, for standing up for our rights, because you stood up for my rights, and for supporting us in providing access to justice, for providing shelter to women and girls. I am on behalf of the 5,000 women and girls that you've supported, I want to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. Thank you, besties. I'm still your host, Hassan Nomaina. Let us keep talking SGBV. You can reach out to us on our email address, and you can also follow us on all of our social media platforms. Thank you, and see you next month. Bye-bye.